The night my father threw my suitcase onto the sidewalk, it didn't just hit the ground. It hit my chest. "If you can't follow our rules, you can sleep on the streets," he said. And my mother? She locked the door behind me. If you think that was the worst part, you have no idea what happened a year later. Before I tell you how I went from that sidewalk to holding the keys to their house, make sure you subscribe, because some stories don't just hurt, they change you forever. My name is Hannah Collins. I was 23 years old the night my parents decided I was no longer their daughter. We lived in a quiet suburb outside Columbus, Ohio. The kind of neighborhood where lawns are trimmed perfectly and everyone waves like life is simple. From the outside, my family looked solid, stable, blessed. Inside that house, though, love always came with conditions. My dad believed obedience was respect. My mom believed appearances were everything. And I believed that if I tried hard enough, I could earn the kind of love that didn't feel like a performance review. I worked 2 jobs after college. I paid my own car insurance. I bought my own groceries. But because I refused to break up with my boyfriend Marcus, who they thought wasn't good enough, suddenly I was labeled rebellious, disgraceful, ungrateful. The argument that night started over dinner. It always did. My mom made her famous pot roast, but the air at the table tasted bitter. Dad didn't even look at me when he said, "Are you done embarrassing this family?" I felt my fork freeze halfway to my mouth. "Embarrassing you how?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "By seeing that boy," Mom snapped. "He doesn't come from our world." Our world. What did that even mean? Because Marcus didn't grow up with money? Because his mom worked nights as a nurse? Because he didn't wear polos and talk about golf? "I love him," I said quietly. And I meant it. That's when my dad slammed his hand on the table, so hard the plates jumped. "Then you can love him somewhere else." I thought it was a threat. A dramatic parent line. The kind you roll your eyes at later. It wasn't. Within an hour, my suitcase was packed. Not by me. By my mother. She folded my clothes neatly, like she was preparing me for a vacation instead of exile. I remember standing there, numb, watching her move through my room like I was already gone. "Mom," I whispered, hoping for some softness. Some crack in her armor. "You don't have to do this." She didn't look at me. "You made your choice." No. They made theirs. When my dad dragged my suitcase to the front door, my whole body felt detached, like I was watching someone else's life collapse. I kept waiting for them to stop. For someone to laugh and say this had gone too far. Instead, the front door opened. Cool night air hit my skin. "You'll understand when you're older," my dad said flatly. "This is for your own good." For my own good. And just like that, I was standing on the sidewalk with 2 suitcases and $312 in my bank account. The porch light shut off. The door locked. I stared at that door for a long time. Part of me expected it to swing back open. For my mom to run out crying, apologizing. For my dad to clear his throat and say I could come back inside. It never happened. That was the moment something inside me cracked. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Just a quiet fracture. I called Marcus. My voice didn't even sound like mine when I said, "They kicked me out." He didn't hesitate. "Stay where you are. I'm coming." I should have felt safe. Relieved. Instead, I felt small. Disposable. Like 23 years of being their daughter meant nothing because I wouldn't bend. As I sat on that curb, neighbors' curtains shifted. People were watching. Whispering. I could almost hear it. The perfect Collins family wasn't so perfect after all. When Marcus pulled up, he wrapped me in his arms, and that's when I finally broke. Not loud sobbing. Just silent tears soaking into his shirt. "I'll prove them wrong," I whispered into his chest. I don't even think he heard me. But I meant it. I didn't know how yet. I didn't know what it would cost. All I knew was that I would never beg to walk back through that door. What I didn't realize was that losing that house was the first step toward owning it. The first 3 months after they kicked me out felt like survival mode. I moved into Marcus's tiny 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat. The walls were thin. The heater barely worked. At night, I could hear coins clanking in the machines downstairs like a constant reminder that everything in life had a price. I told myself I didn't care. I told myself freedom was worth it. But some nights, when Marcus fell asleep, I would stare at the cracked ceiling and wonder how my own parents could erase me so easily. And then the real betrayal surfaced. It happened on a Sunday morning. I was scrolling through Facebook, trying to distract myself when I saw it. A family photo. My parents smiling on the front porch. The caption read, "So proud of our daughter Emily for coming back home and making us a family again." Emily, my younger sister. I felt my stomach drop. I hadn't spoken to her since the night I was thrown out. We used to share everything. Secrets, clothes, dreams. And now she was posing on that porch like I never existed. I called her immediately. She didn't answer. Instead, my mother did. Her voice was sweet. Too sweet. "Hannah, why is Emily living in my room?" I asked. My voice shook despite my effort to sound calm. "It's not your room anymore," she replied. "You gave that up." "I didn't give anything up. You kicked me out." There was a pause. And then she said something that shattered whatever illusion I had left. "We had to make an example out of you. Emily understands that. She respects us." An example. I wasn't their daughter. I was a warning. My chest felt tight. So this was never about Marcus? It was about control, she snapped before catching herself. Then she softened her tone again. About guidance. Control. She said it so casually, like I was a piece of furniture that refused to stay in place. But it got worse. 2 weeks later, I found out my parents had closed the small savings account they helped me open when I was 16, the one I had been contributing to for years. My name was still technically linked to their main account because I'd never bothered changing it after college. I trusted them. They drained it. Every cent. When I confronted my dad, he didn't deny it. "You owe us for everything we've done for you," he said coldly. "Consider it repayment." Repayment? For raising me? For feeding me as a child? For loving me with strings attached? That was the moment the emotional breakdown hit in full force. I hung up and slid down the kitchen cabinet until I was sitting on the floor. I couldn't breathe. My hands were shaking so badly I had to press them against my thighs to steady them. Marcus rushed in from the other room. "Hannah, what happened?" "They took it," I whispered. "All of it." Saying it out loud made it real. I felt stupid, naive, like a little girl who believed her parents would always protect her. For 2 days, I barely left the apartment. I didn't eat. I didn't shower. I replayed every memory of my childhood, trying to pinpoint when love turned into leverage. I kept hearing my father's voice. "You'll understand when you're older." Well, I was understanding now. It wasn't about protecting me. It was about power. If I didn't reflect their image, I was disposable. The humiliation burned deeper than the financial loss. They told relatives I had run off, that I was unstable, that I chose a man over my family. They controlled the narrative before I could even speak. At a family friend's barbecue, one I wasn't invited to but heard about through Marcus's mom, my father apparently joked, "Sometimes tough love means letting them hit rock bottom." Rock bottom. I was working 60 hours a week. I was paying rent. I wasn't partying or spiraling. I was just independent. And that terrified them. One night, after another shift at the restaurant, I walked past a real estate office downtown. The lights were still on. Listings filled the window. Big homes. Small homes. New beginnings behind every door. And there it was. My parents' house. Listed. My heart nearly stopped. They were selling it. The same house they told me I wasn't worthy of living in. The same porch where they replaced me with my sister in a photo. I stood there staring at that picture until something shifted inside me. Not pain. Not grief. Something colder. Clearer. If they were willing to erase me, to drain my savings, to rewrite my story, then I was done crying about it. I went home that night and opened my laptop. I checked my credit. It wasn't perfect, but it was salvageable. I researched real estate classes, licensing requirements, down payment assistance programs. Marcus watched me quietly. "What are you doing?" I looked up at him, and for the first time in months, my voice didn't shake. "I'm done being their example," I said. "I'm going to become their competition." The next morning, I enrolled in a real estate certification course. I picked up extra shifts. I saved every dollar like my life depended on it. Because in a way, it did. They thought pushing me out would break me. They didn't realize they had just given me a reason. Part 3. I studied like my future depended on it. Because it did. Every lunch break, I had flashcards in my hand. Every night after work, I watched training videos until my eyes burned. Real estate laws, contracts, negotiation tactics. I didn't just want to pass the exam. I wanted to master the system. The same system my parents respected more than they ever respected me. When I passed my licensing exam, I sat in my car in the parking lot and cried. Not soft tears. Deep, shaking sobs. For the girl on the sidewalk. For the girl who thought she was unlovable. That girl was gone. Within 6 months, I joined a small brokerage downtown. I worked harder than anyone there. I took the listings no one wanted. The fixer-uppers. The late-night showings. The difficult clients. I smiled when my feet hurt. I stayed calm when buyers screamed. Because every commission check wasn't just money. It was proof. Meanwhile, my parents' house sat on the market longer than expected. The price dropped twice. Interest rates had climbed. Buyers hesitated. I watched it all quietly, tracking every update like it was personal. Because it was. One evening, I saw the newest price reduction. And suddenly, the numbers aligned. My savings. My commissions. A first-time buyer program. It was tight. Risky. Almost reckless. But I wasn't afraid of risk anymore. I'd already survived the worst night of my life. I called the listing agent the next morning. I kept my voice steady and professional. I'd like to schedule a viewing. When I pulled into that driveway a year after being thrown out, my hands trembled on the steering wheel. The house looked the same. White shutters. Blue door. Perfect lawn. But I was different. Walking through the front door felt surreal. The hardwood floors I used to polish every Saturday. The staircase I slid down as a kid. My old bedroom, now painted gray. Emily's photos gone. The walls bare, staged for strangers. The listing agent chatted about square footage and upgrades. I barely heard him. All I could think was, you told me I didn't belong here. That afternoon I made an offer. Slightly below asking. Strategic. Calm. They countered. I countered back. The negotiation lasted 3 days. 3 long, delicious days. And then they accepted. I didn't tell them it was me. Not yet. The paperwork went through under my legal name, which I'd shortened on my license months ago. Hannah C. Lawson. The closing date arrived faster than I expected. I signed every document with steady hands. When the keys slid across the table toward me, the weight of them felt heavier than metal. It felt like closure. But I wasn't done. My parents still had 30 days to vacate under the contract terms. They requested a final walkthrough meeting with the buyer. With me. They didn't know. When they opened the door that afternoon, my mom's polite smile froze. My dad blinked like he'd seen a ghost. Hannah, my mother whispered. I stepped inside slowly, taking in the half-packed boxes around them. Hi. My dad straightened up, pride fighting confusion. What are you doing here? I held up the keys gently between my fingers. I'm the buyer. The silence that followed was thick. Heavy. You, my mother said, almost laughing. That's not funny. I'm not joking. I watched realization crawl across their faces. The same porch. The same house. But now I stood on the other side of power. My dad's jaw tightened. You did this to embarrass us. I almost smiled. No. You did that yourselves. For a moment, I thought I'd feel anger. Or triumph. But what I actually felt was calm. Solid. Untouchable. You told me to sleep on the streets. I continued, my voice steady. You said it was for my own good. You took my savings. You told everyone I ran away. I paused. Turns out, I just needed space to grow. My mom's eyes filled with tears. We were trying to teach you responsibility. No, I said gently. You were trying to control me. I didn't yell. I didn't insult them. I didn't need to. The truth was louder than any revenge speech could ever be. They moved out 2 weeks later. No dramatic apologies. No hugs. Just quiet defeat. The first night I slept in that house again, I lay in what used to be my bedroom and stared at the ceiling. Only this time, I wasn't a girl begging for approval. I was a woman who built her own foundation. I didn't buy the house to hurt them. I bought it to prove something to myself. That I was never the problem. That being thrown out wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. A year ago, I stood on that sidewalk with $312 and a broken heart. Today, I own the very place that tried to erase me. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I refused to stay small. Sometimes the people who push you out think they're taking everything from you. What they don't realize is they're pushing you toward the life you were meant to build. And if you're listening to this while feeling rejected, unwanted, or underestimated, don't let that be your identity. Let it be your fuel. They told me to sleep on the streets. Now I sleep in a house with my name on the deed. If this story moved you, if you believe in turning pain into power, make sure you subscribe and stay with me. Because sometimes the best revenge isn't destruction. It's elevation.